Good afternoon, and it's great to be back. I remember that last year in Valencia, Dominic Proctor jokingly said, "It's a shame to waste a good recession." And, here we are a year later, and I'm going to talk about those that have wasted an opportunity to use a good recession and some examples of those that did take advantage of it. So I want to go back, if I could start, with a quick peek at what happened in prior recessions. And the one I want to refer to is the Great Depression of the 30s. And I want to show you some of the things that happened there, because I suspect that the kind of dislocations that were created or caused by that are repeating themselves today. And I think you'll find it interesting when I take you through the examples. Then I want to focus on the recession of the past years, assuming that it's over, although economists seem to be somewhat divided on whether it is or not. But I want to show you what happened to brand preference and what consumers are saying their patterns of behavior were as they went through these challenging economic times. And I want to focus on a lot of the brands that I think lost an opportunity, but then identify two brands that I think were significant winners. And I think they were winners because they leveraged digital marketing in a really unique and powerful way. And maybe the outcome of this current recession, I suspect, is that it's going to make the role of digital marketing in building and maintaining brand strength even more important. So let's take a look at what happened in the 1930s during the Great Depression. So clients demanded the same level of service from ad agencies even as they spent less. I think we probably can identify with that during the past couple of years. There were harder sells. I think it was hard to sell to the ultimate consumer, and I think that's true today. Value messages became more explicit and direct. That's true. Price became the most prominent element. No surprise. Contest promotions and premiums came to the forefront as a means of adding value to brand purchases. This is a list of the brands that were created during the 30s. And it was really a heyday for innovation. A lot of it was the invention of shelf-stable products that fit in with the times and the challenges that people had. But if you scan down this list of brands, virtually all of them are leading products still available today. Came out of the Depression. New media thrived in the 30s. Radio became of age. Radio was the new media of the 30s. In the average household, radio was left on 4 hours a day. It was the top-rated amusement. Soap operas were invented by Procter & Gamble during the 30s. Bingo became popular. And piano sales plummeted, unfortunately. But you can see that there were a lot of changes that if you were an agile marketer and able to take advantage of the opportunities, you could do pretty well. So let's take a look at what happened during the current recession. And it turns out that many of the brands that consumers say they actually preferred were losers. So we conducted a study, and ARS is a business unit of comScores, and they had actually conducted a study beginning back in 2008 and 2009, and so I had them just update the study here in March of 2010, and it was a survey to determine if shoppers were willing to buy down or trade down, switch brands within different categories because of the challenging economy. Each of the studies focused on women who were purchasers in the category. We looked at the results across time with the objective of identifying patterns and commonalities. So these were the categories that we looked at. The sample size was about 1,000 women in the United States. So here we are just looking at the U.S. I know that Hugh is going to look at the globe right after me here. So these are the categories we looked at. A lot of consumer packaged goods categories, housewares. And the questions that were asked were focused on how do consumers shop in each segment. Do they buy the brand they want most? Do Do they buy a different brand if it's on sale? Do they convert to less expensive brands to save money? And you can see here that clearly, if you ask, did you buy the brand that you wanted most, that there's been a steady decline across the 2 years of this recession. And so the percent of people who typically buy the brands they want most, down across most of the categories, and in March of 2010, less than 50% of shoppers reported buying the brand that they wanted most. And if you look at the data by individual category and just scan from left to right, so you're looking across time, March 08, 09, and then 2010, you can see the way that there's been a steady decline across virtually all of these product categories. And if you look at the net shift, which is over on the right, you can see there's some variation across these categories, ranging from a high of a drop of 15 points in the OTC category, in the apparel category, down to a smaller but still decline of 5% for household products. And so, particularly in these CPG categories, then, consumers were more likely to buy a brand that they didn't want most at the start of the recession. Some categories have not seen increased buying down from a brand perspective, and we suspect that that's in categories where the manufacturers kind of led the way in what we call tiering, which is allowing consumers to stick with their preferred brand but a more attractive price. And it's pretty clear when you look at the data that for those manufacturers that were able and willing to offer some additional value, often in the form of some price incentive, that they were able to maintain their market share. If they didn't do that, almost inevitably their brand share would decline. Bigger ticket items at the bottom here have seen larger increases, possibly due to the larger absolute saving on a single purchase. So if they're not buying the brand they wanted most, what are they buying? And you can see here that for most categories, a drop in likelihood to shop for the brand they wanted most is not just restricted to buying brands on sale. Rather, you've got a sizable percentage of the change that you see here being driven by a decision to convert to less expensive brands to save money, which I think reinforces the point I was making, that it's all about value and it's all about price. And if you're not willing to play in that game, I think the risk is that you're going to lose out. So some of the things that we think a brand can do to counteract these trends. So premium brands should invest in marketing and promotion activities to maintain their buying at preferred levels, and so minimize the amount of erosion to less expensive brands. And then they position the brand for a bounce back when the economy rebounds. Now, there's a lot of evidence, actually, if you look back at studies that have been done in prior difficult recessionary or challenging periods, and I've listed the research here, that it's pretty clear that if you are able to invest in marketing and promotion and the like, that the evidence, I think, is pretty clear that you are able to emerge from these challenging times in a stronger position than you entered them. But there might be even more options available today